Welcome in, everyone, and thank you for listening to the 195th ever episode of the Missouri Sports Podcast, brought to you by 106 Apparel and recording from the Revel Advertising Studio in beautiful Springfield, Missouri. I'm one of your hosts, Cameron Albert, alongside my good friend and fellow Mizzou fan, Kyle DeVries. How are you doing today, Kyle?
I'm great, Cameron. How are you?
I'm doing well. I've been busy. Run a campground, and Memorial Day is right around the corner, and that is the biggest camping weekend of the year. So I've been busy.
It's a beautiful campground.
Thank you.
What do people like to do on Memorial Day at the old campground?
Honestly, they don't come to the campground to be at the campground. There's a car show in Springfield every Memorial Day. So folks that are attending that from out of town, that have RVs, come stay with us. And we get some families that are just on vacation or whatever.
It's been really rainy recently.
Yeah. That's throwing a damper on things, literally. It is dampening things. But the sun's going to come out tomorrow through the weekend, dry everything up. We got the pool open, ready to go. It's pool season.
That time of year.
Kyle, not a lot of news this week. I'll be honest with you. Were you aware of that?
Mm-hmm.
We did get a Mizzou basketball commitment just today, and we actually have a Patreon suggested topic. It's officially been 2 months of Coach Dennis Gates being the new Mizzou basketball coach. So Ryan suggested to us on Discord that we kind of look back at previous Mizzou basketball coaches and talk about their hirings, how we felt about them, sort of the general vibe around the program with the different coaches that we can remember, and just kind of compare and contrast that with Coach Gates' first 2 months. So that sounds pretty fun. Before we do any of that, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, leave us a review on Spotify or wherever you listen to the podcast, and check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/Missouri Sports Pod. And actually, we have another Patreon question from Tristan. This is completely unrelated to sports. Well, it's 5% related to sports. So skip ahead if you don't care about food. Specifically, this is a food that you eat, at Super Bowl time, watching football,
Sure.
Especially chicken wings. And there's a debate, always boneless, bone in. How hot can you go? Do you like a honey barbecue? Do you like another weird flavor? Or do you just like buffalo wings? So Tristan wants to know our opinion on that.
Well, I don't know. I feel like this is something, I've been a little embarrassed about. That I really, I understand the complaints. I understand the shade that's thrown towards boneless wings or nuggets, as some like to say. But, man, they're tasty. They're really, really good. I love boneless wings.
Now I got to stop you right there. Boneless wings and nuggets are not the same thing.
Oh, okay. Great.
Would you agree with that?
I feel like that's like like a diss, that those bone-in folks like to try and make us feel bad, call them nuggets. So you think they're different enough that they are distinguished separately?
I think so.
Okay. Well, I still like bone-in too.
Okay.
It's just like a little more like
you don't like to get your hands dirty.
A little more labor intensive.
Sure.
If I'm just like ready to just dive in, then boneless is good.
Okay.
What about you?
You like them hot though?
Yes. Okay. So that's where I can make up for a little embarrassment. I like really hot stuff in general, like spicy stuff, spicy sauce, spicy everything. So yeah. I mean, I do like a good honey barbecue, but like a spicy is my favorite.
Yeah. We should do like a hot wing challenge.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say that
on air someday.
Absolutely. Really test actually how hot do I really think I can go.
Okay, that's a good idea. Patreon exclusive content. We eat incredibly hot wings and then try to do an actual segment.
Ooh, sounds like a little rip-off of Hot Ones, but I'm down.
That's fine.
Yeah. Oh, we just thought of it right here. I don't know what you're talking about.
True.
Producer Cameron, what's your preference?
If I have the choice, I'm going to go boneless. Just lather it in as much sauce as possible. The more the better. I don't really have a preference on flavor. I like trying a bunch of different ones.
They call that wet.
Yeah, get them wet.
Yep. I'm not a fan of like the oily sauces. I'd rather have something saucy.
Rich.
Yep.
Something
that's gonna really stick to my insides.
Little thickness to it.
Yeah.
To the sauce. Yeah, I have always been a bone-in guy. Have you ever had buffalo wings in Buffalo, New York?
Yes, I actually have.
Wow.
The original buffalo wing place. Yep.
Yeah. Legendary.
I've been there. It's
Just
fantastic.
The biggest wings you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah. Well, that's where spicy wings really become more difficult. I think is bone in because your lips
All
are
over you.
on the sauce and
Oh,
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah. I think it's easier to go really spicy with boneless because you can just go right in. You know?
Oh yeah. I like bone in. I like to just really just get every little particle off of the bone.
That's a treat watching you eat buffalo wings.
I learned from, I don't know how this person's related to me, but I have some family in the Buffalo area, and one of my relatives, he's a pro. He'll take the flat, put the whole thing in his mouth, and then just pull out the bone.
Just comes out clean.
Yeah.
I feel like that's something you see on like cartoons or something.
It's that type of thing.
Wow.
So,
That's
but
impressive.
I've practiced that over the years, and I can get pretty close.
Man.
Yeah, I like getting the sauce under my fingernails.
Oh God, no! It finds like every little. If you got like a little cut up under there or something.
Oh yeah, it'll make it sting.
Yeah.
Don't touch your eyes.
No.
But in more recent years, I can understand the practicality of the boneless.
It's very easy.
Yeah.
Just pop it right in.
Especially, if you're at a get together or something.
Yes.
If I'm at home or, in a
The
more
comfort of your home.
private setting, I've got all the paper towels I need, or maybe a moist towelette. Then
Do you like clean your hands in between wings?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, that's interesting.
yeah, I like to just take my time with it. The problem there is though they can, temperature-wise, they cool off. That's no good. So this is very important. You got to leave your comments on this episode about your wing preference. And
If you have to call them nuggets, that's fine. I
no,
understand.
you can't call them nuggets.
I'm already prepared.
I don't.
Nuggets are a different thing.
I'm already prepared. For
Nuggets are great. Okay, that's like, some people call the boneless wings tenders. No, they don't.
It'll happen. I promise.
Chicken select.
Yeah. And let us know in the comments what's the most wings you've eaten in one sitting. I've probably eaten 20.
That's decent.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to suggest any completely random topics for us to discuss publicly, join the Discord.
Yeah, that's all you got to do. And then, it has to be May when there's not much to talk about.
That's true.
All right, moving on. We do have a few little news nuggets. On the football side of things, Missouri got a commitment from a junior college transfer named L.J. Hewitt. He's 6'3" cornerback with 4 years of eligibility. He chose Mizzou after visiting Iowa State and Mississippi State.
Yep. Physical corner, long arms, definitely some good depth. Maybe has a chance to earn a starting spot, they like to say, down the line a little bit. A couple of years, I think he could definitely develop into a nice corner.
Yeah, he's got the measurables of, the kind of the prototypical defensive back that Mizzou has been targeting. Long arms, good height.
Yeah, I feel like even a couple of plays in his highlight video, he was maybe like a step behind the wide receiver, but it just didn't matter because he had his long arms were like he deflected a lot of passes that way.
And then we did get some kickoff times for a couple of football games for this upcoming season. The away game at Kansas State will be an 11 a.m. kick on ESPN2. And then the home game against Abilene Christian will also be 11 a.m. That one on SEC Network or Plus or whatever, probably streaming.
Yeah, I think the 11 a.m. kickoff time is kind of a proverbial sign of disrespect from the powers that be that decide the kickoff times or, the television networks or whatever.
The fans definitely take it that way at least.
Yes, and you know what? I don't really mind it, though, for this particular game, on the road at Kansas State. it's on the road. So I think that you give the fans less time to get drunk and rowdy, and maybe they're a little more tame at an 11 a.m. game. I mean, it's probably not a huge difference one way or another, but
yeah. I mean, if you were like guaranteeing me a Mizzou win, then yeah, let's go
sure
to their
of
place,
course.
beat them in prime time on ESPN2. That would be
Definitely
fantastic.
Yep.
But, yeah.
If we can gain a little edge from maybe a slightly tamer crowd at 11 a.m., then we'll take it.
Yeah, and you just have to count on the team itself to show up ready to play.
Yeah, both teams have to wake up early, so
Yeah.
hopefully Mizzou's ready. That's a big game. There's some swing games this season where it's flip a coin. In my opinion, that's probably one of them. That's like I could see it going either way.
Definitely. Then Abilene Christian game. That's not very surprising at all. The non-conference game against inferior opponent, getting the 11 a.m. kick on SEC Network Plus, to be expected.
That Kansas State game is going to be fun, though. I mean,
I'm excited.
We're gonna learn who this team is really quick.
Mm-hmm.
Second game of the year.
Hope we win that one.
We haven't done super well in those like Big 12 rematch games in basketball or football, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
So this will be an opportunity to reverse that a little bit.
And K-State, like that, I complain a lot on this podcast. So like it seems like we've played Oklahoma and Oklahoma State in multiple sports, or multiple times in the same sport since leaving the Big 12, and finally playing Kansas, getting back to playing Kansas State. I would love to schedule Nebraska, Illinois, in both sports. I want to kind of rekindle some of those old rivalries. There's no reason not to try to target that in your non-conference schedule, because it's going to have way more fan interest than, for example, playing Boston College.
Yeah, I feel like just like the pride of like random school administrators like get in the way of like a great sporting event.
Yeah.
But I think we are supposed to play Illinois, but it's several years away still.
Yeah. Idea for a future episode: craft your dream Mizzou football schedule. Somebody's gonna steal that from us
on their podcast.
Yeah. All right. Now switching over to basketball, we got a commitment. Do we know right now, is this a scholarship being used, or is this a walk-on situation?
I think that's a little up in the air right now. Yeah, go ahead.
Transfer big man from Cleveland State, Mabor Majak.
Nice.
That's what I'm going with there.
Yeah, I think whenever you look at the experience and the highlight video, with all due respect, it seems like a walk-on situation could be in play.
That'd
but
be preferable, in my opinion.
Probably preferable. But he's 7'2", and, he isn't Jamarian Sharp, probably, but he still can, set screens and create kind of a defensive challenge for other teams, and just by being an enormous presence in the middle of the lane. But, I can't really imagine that there's like a clear path to playing time, at least initially, like this first year.
No, he played 2 seasons at Cleveland State, averaged 4 minutes a game and then 5 minutes a game in his 2 seasons there.
In the Horizon League.
7'2". Shot 41% from the field, which is not good for someone who's that tall.
Lay it up.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is just begs the question: how is this any different from Axel Okongo, Jordan Wilmore? This is that for now a third time. This time with a new coach who, a month ago you would think we're not doing this type of stuff anymore. How do you answer the fan that's frustrated and thinking, wow, we're doing this again? Fun. This, because you can just kind of go, we've seen that now. This player comes in, they're over 7 feet tall. They can't really do a whole lot. Mm-hmm. They transfer.
Yeah. Well, if it's a walk-on, then I'll just say I don't care.
Then it doesn't matter at all. I agree.
Yep. If they do use a scholarship for him, then I'm not gonna even pretend to try and defend it. I think I don't understand it. He's helping out a former player.
Yeah.
And
filling a spot with a shot blocking big, like he's been vocally saying he's trying to go after. But, I mean, this just screams I struck out on everybody else.
Yeah, it's like a massively watered down Jermarian Sharp that we thought we were landing 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It definitely looks like that. And, everybody can't play, though. You have 13, 14 guys deep. Not everybody's going to play meaningful minutes, but I think this is not even really one of those situations where it's like, well, he could play himself into some meaningful minutes. I just don't even see that path right now.
In one game his freshman year, he fouled out in 6 minutes. I don't know if Jeremiah Tillman, it's like kind of no room to talk there because, obviously we supported Jeremiah Tillman for 4 years and saw some interesting games.
Little different skill set.
Sure, obviously. But I don't think he ever fouled out in 6 minutes.
Probably not. Jordan Wilmore may have had some moments where he was on pace for that, but he was never in a game for 5 minutes.
That's true.
Because he'd get yanked the second he was in there.
Well, like you said, if this is a walk-on situation, don't even worry about it. If it's a scholarship, then we got to hope to upgrade the roster a bit next offseason. I don't know.
Okay, so I apologize if this is a little cynical, but
Yeah.
we're doing a one-on-one, half court, 1st to 10 wins. It's Mr. Majak versus Jordan Wilmore. You have the first overall pick. Who are you selecting?
I think I think I gotta say Majak because
Because he's a current player.
yes.
I support it. I'm with you.
And there's still upside. There's still upside. Are you ready to move on?
Yeah.
Okay. We've had Coach Dennis Gates. What is it? Witten family basketball head coach Dennis Gates for 2 months.
You just knew that off the top of your head?
I remembered it.
Nice.
The Witten family is paying us the big bucks to remember to say that. And just kidding, they're not. But if you're out there and you want to, we will say it all the time. This can be the Witten family podcast. Overall, what are your thoughts? First 2 months of head coach Dennis Gates.
I think it's been great. I think we had a weird start, man. That first night when those rumors started coming out, there were some really credible sources saying things like Missouri's targeting Dennis Gates. I think he really just took things in stride. I mean, he is confident in himself. I know he knows what was said about him online. I know he saw the hate. I know he saw the doubt, and he just did what he needed to do. He came in confident, just immediately went to work, started building the roster. I like him, man. I think it's been a great start, and the staff has showed some promise and has good connections, and I like what he's done with the roster. I think it's a team that has a chance to be relevant immediately, and I think that's tough to do.
Yeah, I feel like it's been, we've had a little dry spell with commitments, and now with this most recent one, it's like, because there was such a gap, you can't just shuffle this newest commitment in with the ones that people are more excited about.
Right.
I feel like there was a nice little jolt of energy. Like you're saying, a lot of people were very vocally against this hire. And I mean, he's probably the only person we talked about as being a candidate, and we didn't talk about him much, but he's probably the only one that we talked about whose most recent team had a lower KenPom rating than this past season's Missouri Tiger team.
Yeah.
And that is concerning. But you have to take into account all of his experience and, where he was at Cleveland State and the progress that he had shown there. But after that kind of insane pessimism in the first 24 to 48 hours, I feel like cooler heads prevailed. And, well, first of all, it was obvious that, no Twitter campaign was going to reverse this decision. And then people were able to take a breather, reassess the situation, actually look at his experience, what he had to say in his press conference, everything like that. And he turned people around pretty quickly before even putting together this pretty impressive transfer class.
Yeah, I may or may not have some screenshots archived somewhere, and they'll probably never see the light of day, but it'll make me chuckle someday, hopefully, of the meltdown that happened the night that news was kind of starting to break. But and he hasn't done anything yet, so maybe those those screenshots will look pretty good someday.
Well, that's what's bad about that situation is if you go ahead and be completely negative, then there's a chance that this coach will fail, and you'll be able to say, "I knew it all along."
You'll take advantage of the situation to say you were right,
yeah,
and you'll almost halfway root against him.
But if he's successful, then nobody's going to think about that. It's like, okay, cool, we've got a good basketball team. You really want to focus on these people that were negative at the beginning.
Nobody will remember. If you would have asked me what I thought about how things were going, maybe like the day before the debacle happened with Jamarian Sharp, I probably would have been like even more positive than I was, because the last 3 weeks have been quiet, a little strange with what happened with Sharp, and maybe this kind of strange addition. Like right now in this very specific moment in time, things are a little bit weird, but for the most part, I still think that he's come in and done very well, and has showed me that there's a lot of things to be excited about, and
And one of the most exciting things is the staff that he put together.
Yeah.
Headlined by C.Y. Young. That's an incredible get. And the way that Young has said, this is my guy. Coach Gates is my guy. I would not be doing this for very many other coaches, coming in as an assistant, leaving Florida State. But this is my guy. We're going to build something here. Mm-hmm. And I don't remember. Well, we'll talk about some of these other head coaches. I don't remember ever being as excited for one of the assistants. Maybe one.
I think I might know who you're going to say.
So I think we're off to a good start. I'm cautiously optimistic for the next couple seasons. I can't wait to see what they do in the high school recruiting side of things. Obviously, they were able to retain Aiden Shaw and keep a couple of the most important pieces from last year's team, and I think there's something to build on. And he's got roster flexibility moving into the next 2 or 3 seasons. He's not stuck with a bunch of underclassmen that he didn't recruit or anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think he probably had some difficult conversations with guys that were on the roster last year, but he retained some of the most important pieces, and I think that shows he's willing to do what it takes and be strategic about it. And like I said, with Kobe Brown and some of the older, experienced talent that they've added, I think they have a chance to be relevant.
So, what could we point to in this first 2 months that didn't go well? So, losing Brazil, obviously, that hurts.
That hurts.
It really seeming like there was a lot of smoke to the Sharp transfer.
Yeah.
And then not getting him hurts.
I think they were really surprised. I think even the staff was surprised at how things went.
Is there anything else that just kind of there was potential there, but then it just kind of fizzled out? I feel like those two things, either one of those things going Mizzou's way makes me feel quite a bit better about next season.
Also, losing out on Jason Roach, I think, hurts as well. The shooter from Citadel.
Yeah. That's one I'm not so sure on, just because of where he ended up.
That's not as impactful, probably, but still a guy I feel like they wanted and didn't get.
Well, and the fact that we're still looking for a shooter.
Right. The fact that we still have 2 open scholarships and we're looking for a shooter,
Yeah. Makes it hurt worse. Okay, so now let's jump in the time machine and go back to when Konzo Martin was hired as a Mizzou basketball coach. And I don't know if I've ever said this on the podcast, but I was actually on a cruise ship on vacation with my wife when this was all happening. And judge me, don't judge me. I feel like I'm in a safe space with Mizzou fans here. I was taking time out of my day to go to the cruise ship library where they had a computer with internet, and I was checking for updates on the Mizzou coaching search, and then obviously any recruits that might be involved in that.
Yeah, I don't think you'll get any judgment from anyone that's listening to this podcast about that.
Overall, it was not a great cruise experience, so I was kind of happy to divert my attention from time to time onto something more fun.
Not a cruise guy?
That was my first cruise, and not my favorite.
Yeah,
there's other things I'd rather do. I'm glad we did it, but
yeah, didn't you say MPJ like committed well, and you saw that on your little library computer as well, or something like that?
So I was checking ESPN on like the little room TV, and I saw scrolling across the bottom, number one prospect in the whatever class, Michael Porter Jr. commits to Missouri.
Jeez.
And then I raced to the library
I gotta go to the computer,
get online and see what the reactions were.
What a time.
Yeah. So I honestly, looking back, I can't remember how close it was to Konzo being hired that the Porters came along, but
I feel like it was like literally maybe the same day that like Konzo was hired, and we were starting to get information that the Porters wanted to come back.
Yeah. So there were like rumblings, Mizzou fans were keeping track of what was going on with Lorenzo Romar in Washington. I think just the previous year, they had Markel Fultz had gone through as a one and done, number one overall pick, and they had
It wasn't a whole lot left, right, on their current roster.
Right, but they had MPJ and Jonte coming in. Both were committed to Washington. I don't think Jonte was set to reclassify at that point. I think he was still going to play his senior year of high school, but then it was like, surely Washington won't fire Romar with these guys coming in.
Yeah.
And they did.
And I remember the press conference.
Yeah. And obviously Michael Porter Sr. was on staff.
Yep. I maybe could be misremembering because it was just pandemonium,
mm-hmm.
but I really feel like that may have all happened in one day. Like in the morning, there's some rumors.
Felt like it.
There were some rumors that Romar's job security may not be super strong. The Porters would probably come back to Missouri if that happened. Literally by noon, I think Konzo had been announced, and then Romar was maybe fired that afternoon.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was all that day, but it was all within probably 48 hours.
Yeah.
And I remember I did not get anything done at work because I was just absolutely glued to what was going on.
So Konzo was the head coach. I was honestly pretty thrilled with that hire at the time. I remember thinking specifically, I'm glad we got him and not Illinois.
Yep.
And I remember thinking Illinois can have Brad Underwood. That's fine. No, maybe I was incorrect in that assessment, but and then Konzo bringing in the Porters was just, I said most exciting assistant hire. Michael Porter Sr. maybe tops that, at least as far as excitement at the time, because it meant 2 5-star players were coming along with him. But that was just, there's no way to top that as far as like a Mizzou fan in that moment, seeing that all come together. I wouldn't expect any coaching hire to have that level of excitement ever again.
Yeah, I mean, looking back to that coaching search, I liked Konzo. I obviously have lived in Springfield my whole life, so I watched him coach Missouri State for 3 years and was really good here. And, they won the Valley one of those years. And so, I liked Konzo. What's ironic about that situation was, I wanted Tom Crean. He was probably like one of my top candidates that time around. But yeah, when it came down to why, and this is kind of my personal theory that I don't think anybody really may know this for sure, but I kind of feel like Missouri was in a bidding war with somebody for Konzo, because that's why we ended up with just that unbelievably terrible contract, just that ironclad contract that we ended up, it was a nightmare later on. But at the time, it was like, if this is what we need to do to keep him away from Illinois, let's do it. Because I didn't, like you said, I didn't want Illinois to have him, because I thought of Konzo as an electric recruiter, and which is also kind of ironic. And I did not want Illinois to have him, and so I was happy that we had him.
Yeah. In my mind, he would have just cleaned up St. Louis recruiting for Illinois if it had gone that way.
Yeah.
In hindsight.
It seems really silly. Some of the stuff.
Within the first 2 months, if we're extending it out a little bit, he brought in, I know I don't have the timeline exactly right probably, but bringing in Tillman, Blake Harris, Jalen Knox visited. Is that his name?
Jalen Knox is a former football player.
Who am I talking about? Went to Kentucky. He was a 5-star. His last name is Knox.
Kevin Knox.
Kevin Knox.
Yes.
He visited campus and was like, maybe we're gonna get 2 5-star like forwards.
Yeah, which he ended up being great at
Kentucky. At Kentucky, yeah. That was such a whirlwind, and I don't know. I feel like if you're out there, if you're listening to this and you were like, I was negative on the Konzo hire, and if you had a decent reason for it with all of that excitement, I'd like to hear it, because
like an unbiased retrospect.
Yeah. Like if you were like, I kind of always thought this thing and it ended up being true, yeah, let us know. But I feel like even someone who's lukewarm on Konzo Martin being the coach. Now you can maybe say it wouldn't have mattered. The Porters would have come back to Missouri for just about any coach not named Kim Anderson, with Romar getting fired at Washington. You're probably right.
Yeah, it's possible.
But overall, I would say clearly excitement, optimism for me personally around the Konzo Martin hire was greater than now with the Gates hire, even though I like it.
Yeah, I think he probably would have been my 3rd or 4th realistic pick whenever they hired him, but absolutely when it was official, I was thrilled.
Yeah. All right, so taking it back a little bit further, before Konzo Martin was hired, there was a Mizzou basketball coach by the name of Kim Anderson, and I legitimately forgot about him when I was like making my little list of coaching hires that I remember. I literally just skipped him and wrote down Frank Haith. Like in my mind, it goes from Frank Haith to Konzo Martin.
It's very real, unfortunately.
It happened. And the ramifications are still being felt to this day. That's not an exaggeration. Oh, that's depressing. So Kim Anderson was coming over from D2, had just come off the back of a national championship.
Yep.
And had been an assistant, had played for Norm Stewart, been an assistant for Norm Stewart. He was a true son through and through. Welcome home, welcome back. However, he had already been passed over for this job multiple times at this point.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of people that didn't like this hire. And I feel like this was a very specific hire to have stability and a clean program, and probably to make some individuals around the program happy. Unfortunately, this was I believe a Mike Alden hire. Mm-hmm. And yeah, obviously it went nowhere, but first 2 months it wasn't a disaster.
What were your feelings?
Honestly, at the time, I said, it's fine. Let's give him a shot. Let's see what he can do. He can coach basketball.
Yeah.
We know that.
Yeah.
I was with everybody else, though, questioning the recruiting, questioning his age. But I thought at least he will have some decent X's and O's. And, we may not be landing big-time recruits, but if we can get 4-year guys that stay in the program, don't have a bunch of transfers, then he can build something.
Yeah, I think I probably would put myself somewhere around that as well, where it was like, yeah, this is probably not my first choice. This is not the most exciting hire, but I'm willing to trust the administration and just take a chance here. And he knows the program really well. And what ended up not being true at all was, I guess I had this idea that, well, at least we have like a pretty high floor. I don't think we'll be terrible, but he's not going to win a national championship. We're not going to be explosive. We're not going to be great, but at least we probably should be decent. And that, of course, was horribly untrue. And I guess just what we witnessed was the importance of Division I connections and recruiting and how important that is. And, I mean, yeah, Kim Anderson could drop some X's and O's, I guess, but if you don't have the athletes to compete, if you don't know anybody, if the players don't like you, nothing is going to go well. And that's basically what ended up happening, and it was just a nightmare for 3 straight years. And I would say I had a glimmer of hope at the beginning when he hired the coach from Huntington Prep. What's his name? Do you remember?
Rob Fulford. And, I kind of remembered thinking like, okay, I can see how this might work. Kim Anderson is going to focus on the X's and O's, and this guy will bring in the athletes because he seemed to have connections. Right. But we could just never finish the deal with, a Thomas Bryant or, some. There was a handful of 4 and 5 star guys that we got on campus. Yep. And then the in-state recruiting wasn't there either. You know, during that time, there was a final 2 for Jason Tatum between Mizzou and Duke.
Right. And what's interesting is, so they did land some talent in that first off season with, Techie Gil Caesar and Naaman Wright, Jaqueen Gant. Yeah. Some of those guys.
Those were mostly Frank Haith holdovers.
2 of them were.
Yeah, he was able to have a pretty decent first recruiting class on the back of some of the work that Haith had put in. Right. But then also Fulford as well.
And those guys were just expected to do. They were just needed immediately, and it's a lot of those guys ended up being really good players later in their careers, and probably would have been great at Missouri if they stuck around, but it just wasn't going to work that way. And how things just completely failed from the start. I'm sure a lot of those guys wanted out immediately, and they left.
I pulled up an article from the Columbia Missourian from April 2014. It's just talking about how there was fans took to Twitter to voice their displeasure, and it also shows some opinions from various sports columnists around the country. The St. Louis Post-Dispatch wrote an article basically saying give him a chance. Dana O'Neill for ESPN questioned the school spending $42,000 on a search firm only to hire Kim Anderson.
I always kind of question that, no matter who the hire is.
Yeah. Yahoo Sports called the hire a calculated risk, and Sporting News said it was the safe route, which I think that's that's how a lot of fans viewed it.
I guess that's exactly what made it so strange. Was it did seem safe, and it just ended up being the complete opposite. And I think, honestly, when you kind of look at Dennis Gates, he's almost like the complete opposite, like anti-Kim Anderson, where, he hasn't coached very long. He hasn't been a head coach super long, doesn't have a ton of experience, but he has a ton of connections and knows a lot of people, and that was the complete opposite of Kim Anderson.
I'm trying to still compartmentalize it to, just the first 2 months, and I think I was just, optimistic but not overly excited, and this hire in particular, I was trying to convince myself that it might work. I don't have to do that very often. I can usually just buy the hype a little bit, but this one I was like,
you had to jump through some hoops.
You had to do mental gymnastics to get there. Then, before Kim Anderson, we had Frank Haith. And that was an interesting situation. Okay, so if we're ranking these, I would go Konzo, Gates, Kim Anderson right now.
On your excitement level?
Yeah.
Your
excitement and optimism, just overall feeling good, the goodness factor.
Okay.
Would you agree?
Yeah, I would.
Okay. So how much do you remember about the hiring of Frank Haith?
Honestly, I feel like I remember being a little disappointed with this hire. Was coming from an okay Miami program. I would this is fairly early on in my really, really good when I was really paying close attention to Mizzou basketball. But I would say I remember being a little underwhelmed.
Mm-hmm. I would agree, and especially we were coming off of Mike Anderson, who had a good career at Mizzou, and the fan base kind of felt like he had done wrong by the fans and the players and everybody by leaving. And so at least for me, there was this feeling of like, well, we can show him and we can show that we're going to go get a good coach and we can do better than Mike Anderson. He's walking out the door, kind of leaving a bad taste in people's mouth, but we can go out and get a coach that's going to make us forget about Mike Anderson. And I would say that didn't really happen.
Happened the first year.
Well, the players, I don't know what he did the first year. He kind of was able to just get out of the way, I think, and just let them do their thing. And they had enough motivation, and they were obviously fired up to, especially those seniors, to go out on a good note.
Yeah.
But
they had an incredible year his first year, but I'm not really sure how much he had to do with it.
Right. And the first thing that came up after he was hired was there was allegations against the Miami athletic department, and specifically Haith was named in some of the documents and stuff around the booster, Nevin Shapiro, who was, doing stuff under the table, paying players, whatever, making questionable donations and things like that. I don't remember all the details, but so that was kind of some baggage that was following Haith here, and it was kind of like, okay, athletic department, you had to have known there was something going on here.
Yeah, it didn't really seem like a guy that you would take a risk on if you knew some of those things. Like you usually would aim a little higher probably if you knew you were taking on potential allegations.
Exactly.
So that's, I think, that was a little puzzling.
And with the squad that you had, with the players that you had, you don't want to waste that year. Anybody involved with the program had to know, like, we've got some guys that could do something special, and they're motivated, but I don't know.
What a weird time for Mike Anderson to leave, honestly.
Yeah.
But
I can't blame him too much. Looking back on it, going home to Arkansas, whatever.
Yeah. But Frank Haith, just kind of a strange few years there at Missouri. But one thing I do feel like he was kind of ahead of his time on was transfers and bringing in talented guys who maybe just whatever reason it didn't work out at their first stop with Jabari Brown and Jordan Clarkson, who was coming up a really successful player at a lower level from Tulsa. I feel like he was doing that before a lot of other programs were.
And he was doing some really good high school recruiting as well. I mean, he had some solid recruiting classes, guys like Torrin Jones, who, and
Wes Clark.
Yeah. So guys that were solid D1 players, not necessarily at Mizzou, but
Who's the guy that went to Gonzaga? I'm blanking on his name.
Oh yeah, Jonathan Williams.
Yeah.
Good stuff all around. Oh, something we should mention about Kim Anderson. He was able to get something out of Ryan Rosberg and
for half of a season,
and Keanu Post just a little bit. When all hope seemed lost. Anyway, back to Frank Haith. So the allegations and stuff from Miami that followed him was kind of weird. Kind of put a damper on things, and that offseason, everybody thought that Matt Painter was coming to Mizzou from Purdue. That was that coaching search where that seemed like a legitimate possibility, and that did not happen. So I think there was just things working against Haith to where the first couple months after his hire, people were not excited.
Yeah, that's a pretty massive drop-off, I'm not going to lie, from Matt Painter to Frank Haith.
Yeah.
Because, I think we really thought Matt Painter was coming. And it sounded like maybe even he thought that he might be coming for at least a short amount of time.
Yeah, that's what's always been rumored anyway. So, honestly, if I'm trying to really put myself back in my own shoes from back then, I think I was more optimistic and happy with excited's not the right word, but I think I was happier with the Kim Anderson hire than the Frank Haith hire. And part of it is because we were setting our sights on Matt Painter.
Honestly, as insane as that sounds, I think I might agree that I was more comfortable with Kim Anderson than Frank Haith at the time.
But it wasn't all Frank Haith's fault. Like, at the time, I wasn't even paying that much attention to his resume because I wasn't thinking about, he was an assistant for Rick Barnes at Texas and, that kind of stuff. I was thinking, what's this Miami stuff? I can't believe we didn't get Painter. This sucks.
Yeah, it was just coming from a mediocre situation with potential allegations.
Then now we're really having to think back here to the hiring of Mike Anderson. And I'll be honest, I don't remember that well. I don't remember my feelings around it. I remember him bringing in, I remember we were going to get this kid from Vanderbilt, his nephew, Damari Carroll, and he was going to be a pretty good player. And then, coming from UAB, he also brought over, in a similar situation to Gates, he brought over JT Tiller, who he was recruiting. I'm going to get this wrong. He was definitely recruiting him to UAB. I don't know if Tiller was like signed or committed to UAB, but he was recruiting Tiller to UAB and then was like, well, come on over to Mizzou.
Hit on both of those guys.
Exactly. That couldn't have gone better for him.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with you. I definitely remember most of those years, but I don't know I can remember his press conference or being hired or anything like that. I think we would have been in like middle school when that happens probably.
And he was having to come in to a weird situation where the program was not in a great spot. There was NCAA violations and things like that. And he did a fantastic job of turning all of that around, getting some good recruiting classes. And obviously when he left a bad taste in everybody's mouth. But looking back at it now, I think Mizzou fans in general can appreciate what he did and that Elite Eight run, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think the time right around his hiring, there was a general feeling of, UAB, not a heralded program, but, his history with Arkansas overshadowed that, I think, and people were excited. And the brand of basketball that he was bringing was going to be fun.
Yeah.
That's all you got?
I second that. That Elite Eight run, though, that was a special time.
Yeah.
That was really fun.
Those were fun teams. And he's the reason Phil Pressey was a Tiger.
Yeah. I mean, just a lot of legendary players, I think, were played here in that era. Just a lot of guys that you just look back on in a very, very fond era of Mizzou basketball in those kind of early, or I guess the right before 2010s.
Yeah. Excitement, though, I don't know. I think that the program was in a rough spot, so it was like, okay, we need somebody who knows what they're doing to come in and turn this around. And he did it. I would say, for me personally, I wasn't really in a position to necessarily be excited or disappointed. So I don't know if I can judge it against these other ones.
I don't think I can even rank it, really.
I could pretend.
Quinn Snyder.
Oh, I remember when he was hired. It was down to him and Billy Self. And
good grief.
No, I don't remember any of that.
Yeah, I have some vague memories of games from that era, but of course I don't really remember.
Yeah, I remember Quinn Snyder,
of course,
being a thing, and I remember Linus Kleza.
Mm-hmm.
He was like the first player that I remember paying attention to.
Yeah, those are pretty early days for us.
So with all that, Dennis Gates.
Yeah, there's always
number 2 excitement level.
There's always hope. There's always optimism. But I definitely think I don't know. It was a weird time, man. It would be interesting to hear other people kind of talk about how they would maybe rank Dennis Gates against some of the coaches that we've hired recently, because not everybody felt optimistic about Dennis Gates when he was first hired, and and I think that there's some valid concerns.
Yeah, some people I would say still aren't that excited. They're seeing a bunch of Horizon League players coming in, and what's that going to look like? And we don't have a high school recruiting class to look at yet. So
yeah, I mean,
it's still super early.
I definitely feel like administration is just making a bet on him and not necessarily what he's done, but just who he could be and his potential. And yeah, I mean, that is what I would probably say is a calculated risk.
Yeah.
And, a guy that everybody in the industry loves and has a lot of connections, but hasn't really truly done it at a high level yet. Yeah, that's risky. I can completely understand the concern, but
you're setting yourself up for a situation where he could turn the program around in a way that makes him not want to leave.
Oh yeah, in a much, much higher ceiling than probably anybody we just talked about, as far as like how good he could potentially be as a coach.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point you're bringing up. I would say Mike Anderson would be. I would say he definitely has the highest ceiling for what he could do at a Division I program. I would say Gates has that, and with maybe Mike Anderson being second.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I think we had really high hopes for Konzo too, but
was that a Konzo thing? I don't know.
Or was that just a perfect storm of circumstance?
Yeah. And, it didn't take long for the recruiting to not be there and just get rid of all doubt. But, yeah. I mean, it's not like if Gates gets Mizzou rolling, is Florida State that much better of a job? No. Is Cal, where his alma mater, a better job? No. So
I would say Florida State could be dangerous, but
just because of what it is under Leonard Hamilton, it's not necessarily
his connections.
Yeah.
To that program.
Sure. But
I mean, it's kind of one of those things where do you even want to be the coach at a school that you're kind of beloved at? I think we've seen that obviously with Kim Anderson and Barry Odom and some of these true sons that have come back, and it just hasn't ended well. And it's like, do we, as a coach, do you want to go down that road that if things don't go well and don't end well, you've maybe tainted your relationship with that university for maybe the rest of your life? I don't know. It's interesting, and maybe some guys would welcome that, going back to somewhere where they have a lot of history, and some guys probably might say the opposite.
Okay, so I just realized that like 3 years from now, if we're returning to this conversation, one thing that we will mention is Kim English.
Right, and I just thought of that as well.
Yeah, what he does in the next 3 or 4 years will
compare it,
inform people's opinions looking back on this time tremendously.
Yep.
So we'll just have to wait and see, I guess.
Yeah, hopefully
that's kind of fun though, is it not? To be like, oh, Kim English is out there. Obviously everybody's going to be rooting for him to succeed as a coach, and
yeah, as long as Dennis Gates is doing well.
Exactly, but even if he's not, then it's like, well, we still have this other option to try out. I don't know. I think it's kind of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, we will definitely talk about that though. In 3 or 4 years, if Dennis Gates was not the move and Kim English may have been the move, I think, that's going to be another one of those just what if things. What if we just went with Kim English? But
yeah,
it would have been just the third time we were going with a true son though since 2014 or whatever, if you combine the two sports, football and basketball. So I just feel like it just would have, I don't know.
There's people in the comments section right now. There's already comments that were published that were like, typing. Yeah, they already typed out, something about Kim English, thinking we weren't going to mention it. Yeah. We mentioned it. It's a huge factor though.
Yeah. Of course we're rooting for him, of course.
All right. Well, hope you liked that little trip down memory lane, Ryan. That was specifically for you. So
good
enjoy
question.
It. Yeah. It's fun to reminisce a little bit and show how young we are in the grand scheme of things. Special thank you to our Patreon supporters at the $10 level and above: Britt Treese, Brian Smith, Ryan Demore, Tristan, Ben Smith, Parker, Daddy JD, Luis Hernandez, Tim Keynes, and Tyler Harsel. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. You can find this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. We're on Twitter at Mizzou Sports Pod, and you can email us at MissouriSportsPod@gmail.com.
You can find our t-shirts and stickers on our online shop, MissouriSportsPod.BigCartel.com.
Thank you everyone for listening. We will see you next week.